The ocean is home to thousands of species, from fishes to whales. It's part of our daily lives, we travel on it, and we use its resources. The ocean is a treasure trove that should be treasured and treated sustainably so that future generations can enjoy the same benefits. But we now see a worrying problem slowly creeping into our waters. Microplastics. They have been found in the ocean at the same time we started to use plastics commercially. But with the increasing use of plastics in our daily lives at the turn of the century, microplastics have grown to become an ecological parasite, slowly poisoning our beautiful ocean. But what exactly is a microplastic? In our video, we'll be looking into where it comes from, how it affects us, and what can we, normal people in Hong Kong, can do about it. Microplastics comes in all kinds of shapes, but they are all at least less than 5 millimeters. There are two types of microplastics, primary and secondary. Primary microplastics are plastics purposely made by factories to be around less than 5 millimeters. We find them in our body products like face wash and stuffed toys. Secondary microplastics are broken down from larger plastics, forming even smaller individuals. A lot of our other rubbish, like paper and metal, can be decomposed by bacteria or rust away. These can be reused by other animals or bacteria in the environment, forming an equilibrium with nature. However, plastic is really strong. Small bacteria in our environment cannot decompose them. They also don't naturally rust. They are only broken down into smaller pieces by the sunlight. They get smaller and smaller, and after a long time, they become microplastic, but they don't disappear. As more and more microplastic appear in the ocean, it causes irreversible damage to the environment, making all animals living in our oceans sick. Imagine your house. If your mate does not clean the house, after a long time, there will be a lot of dust. As the dust covers your entire house, you may develop allergies and get sick. This is the same for microplastic in the ocean. Some animals may think microplastics are food and eat them, but since their bodies cannot break it down, it got stuck in the stomach and the animals die. Microplastics easily stores the toxic chemicals like DDT in the ocean. Just like a sponge absorbs water really easily. When an animal eats it, it enters the food chain. As bigger and bigger animals eat the smaller animals, more and more toxic materials will be stored in their body. This is called bioconcentration. But how does these affect you? Well, you eat seafood, don't you? There's a chance that the toxic material from fishes will enter and stay in your bodies. But most importantly, the ocean is a beautiful treasure, home to many animals. As humans, we have a responsibility to keep it safe from harm. But before we can keep it safe, we must know where the microplastics comes from. Remember I told you about the two types of microplastic, primary and secondary. For primary plastics, they show up in daily care products such as face wash. When we flush the face wash down the sinks, the microbeads in the products will end up in the ocean as well. Luckily, Hong Kong is a very advanced sewage treatment facility. Most of the primary microplastic from our shower products are filtered here. However, sometimes accidents happen and a lot of primary microplastics might end up in the ocean. But the biggest problem, secondary microplastic. There are two big sources of secondary microplastics. Firstly, when people directly throw plastics into the sea. Secondly, when people litter on the streets. In Hong Kong, there are a lot of fishing villages along the coast. In the harbor, there are also a lot of people living on boats. For them, throwing rubbish is very annoying. There's just no rubbish bins around. For them, it will be very easy for them to throw rubbish directly into the sea. This is a very bad habit, but it has become part of their lives, mainly because there are no police stations around when they do it. But we shouldn't put all the blame on them. Plastics from the streets actually represents most of the secondary microplastics that end up in the ocean. When some of you throw plastics into a rubbish bin, you might miss and it lands on the floor. Or maybe some of you are bad people and just like to litter everywhere. Despite the best efforts of cleaners cleaning the streets, there are always some plastics that remains. After a rainy day, the plastic will be carried into the sewage system. Slowly, they will be transported to the ocean and broken down. But how do we deal with them? Luckily, Hong Kong has heroes who help fight microplastics. Organizations like Plastic Free Seas. These heroes do a lot of job. Sometimes they organize volunteers to pick up plastic rubbish in the beaches. They also play an important role in science studies. For example, they would use boats and filter the water to see how many microplastics are there in the water. These data can help the scientists in Hong Kong to write reports to the government to push them to help fight the microplastic problem. Some of you might be thinking, that's good, there are heroes fighting microplastics. I can sit back and relax. Besides, I'm just a small potato. I can't do anything to help the microplastic problem in Hong Kong. Well, that's where you're wrong, kids. The microplastic problem is everyone's problem. We need everybody's help to deal with the mess we created. So, what can a potato like me do to help? Here are a few ideas to start with. If you see some rubbish on the streets, be a good guy. Pick them up and throw it into the closest rubbish bin. Use less plastic products. Next time you go to McDonald's, don't use the plastic straws and plastic caps. Don't buy water bottles or soda drinks. Bring your own. Also, instead of using your weekend playing video games, you can use the time to volunteer to organizations like Plastic Free Seas to clean up beaches. Now that you know about microplastics, maybe your friends don't, or maybe your parents don't. Share videos and news about microplastic and raise their awareness. Encourage them to do the same. Together, we can create a world without microplastics.